What up, dudes? So first and foremost, I am in a hotel room, and the audio, the lighting, like all these things are probably going to be subpar. It's during my season, and I had a few minutes not going to the field today, so I needed to film a video for the glove side mechanics, and here we are. So let's get that out of the way. Not the best setting, not the best environment to do an explainer video, but we're here, we're gonna grind. So I wanted to do an explainer video just kind of covering all of the different aspects regarding the appearance of the glove side. Okay, so like anything within the pitching delivery, it's super individual specific. The appearance of one's delivery is not going to look the same as another person's, but they could also both be accomplishing the same task, the same goal of throwing hard, putting the ball where you want, and staying healthy, right? So I'm going to break down, try to do this as in much detail as possible, but by like staying extremely simplistic, because my goal, especially pertaining to the glove side mechanics, is just to give instructors reading my ebook an opportunity to be equipped with like a lot of different components. So therefore, when they do work with individuals, they have essentially a lot of tools in the toolbox to maybe trial and error with, okay? So I got seven components for you in terms of the appearance, and if you're watching this coming from the ebook, we'll obviously do more mechanical screenings and do more breakdowns as we progress throughout the chapter, okay? So I'm gonna be coming up here and reading from my, my notes, so then I'll get back, and maybe if there's a visual example I need to do, I'll do that. All right, so first, glove arm extension and trunk timing. So the biggest thing about the glove side mechanics, in my personal opinion, is you're just influencing a most optimal segmentation movement as possible. So I've talked a lot about segmentation and authentic separation throughout this book. It's an extremely important piece towards the goals of the pitching mechanics, right? We want to create rotational energy, we want to create a lot of torque, and we want to leverage our arm. So when we look at the glove side mechanics, I am a huge advocate of teaching glove side extension because, again, one of those timing and positioning components, right? So the glove side extension allows us to essentially buy time for this front foot to get into the position of anchoring down. Okay, so you'll see a lot of guys when they kind of separate their hands, which we'll talk about later, get full extension of their glove side and then come back into their retraction. So it's like an action reaction type dynamic here. So essentially it's a timing for me. So the glove side extension is going to influence optimal timing of when the trunk's going to rotate. So you'll see a lot of times, there's multiple reasons in my opinion on why guys start to initiate trunk rotation early, which we'll talk about in the next chapter within this book, but we can look at the front side as a mechanism to instill more efficient timing, right? So if we get into glove side extension or front side extension, whatever you want to call it, then that gives us more time because we have to go from extension into flexion, or even from flexion extension into flexion again, and then into retraction. So that timing mechanism, because again, the throw itself is lasting what, no more than like 2 seconds. The throw itself is lasting 1 second. So there's all these like milliseconds. So the glove arm extension is going to influence, for me, the timing of the trunk when that initiates rotation. So for majority of guys, I would say the trunk needs more time, right? So a lot of guys will struggle with the trunk being early rather than opposed to like the trunk being late. So glove arm extension, glove side extension can help in that too. Probably the most important when we look at the glove side is like arm angle and establishing a plan of rotation. Okay, so a lot of, I think, coaches maybe will get a little bit too precise within how the glove side looks and how it appears through someone's just perception. And in my personal opinion, the glove side, the angle of it is going to be dictated by the individual's arm slot and the arm angle of which they possess. And this is what I was saying within the ebook is once an individual establishes a foundation for how they throw, how their brain perceives the movement, which is a throw, once you have that foundation, it's hard to kind of like break up that whole entire foundation and try to start from scratch. So you want to take bits and pieces of that foundation, and one is maybe the arm angle. I look at like the most athletic and repeatable arm angle. So you take that and then you say essentially, okay, well, knowing how we are built and designed from a biomechanics standpoint. You know, even the way we walk, kind of equal opposite, right? So that's going to be the same thing for the glove side. There's outliers, obviously, that goes without saying. But when we look at establishing a plan of rotation, the glove side is going to essentially be the exact posture in which the throwing arm is going to come. You'll see more of this in the screenings that I do because it's a clear representation of that. So you'll see some guys, you know, have a more of a glove side that goes out like this due to their arm angle coming through and getting rotational and dropping it down. You'll see some guys with a glove side like myself who has a higher arm angle get high with their glove side and then match plane, because look, this is plane of rotation. All right, so from an efficiency standpoint, from a biomechanic efficient standpoint, we just want to make sure that everything is in sync and we're establishing that plane of rotation. Like I said, there is outliers, but what I see in my personal experience, if someone has a glove side in which doesn't really match up the plane of rotation, then you're going to be fighting a lot of inconsistencies, because it's not what the body, in my opinion, wants to do. It wants to be in sync and wants to be in unison. Okay, so that's 2. 3, looking at the drive leg loading pattern and establishing direction. So I talked about this within the drive leg chapter in what dictates the body's direction, right? Obviously we have a perception of where like the task is, but what I look at is the drive leg load being, you know, guys that can hip hinge or guys that load up more in their quad, have a little bit of misdirection. The drive leg is going to be a huge component in terms of establishing a direction. The glove side is going to be a direct correlation to or it's going to complement, sorry, not correlation, complement that same direction that the drive leg establishes, okay? This is another one of those pieces that I think you should look more towards at the mechanical screening of this, because if you're trying to sit here and paint a picture in your head, it'll be a little bit difficult. But the glove side is going to appear different for those individuals that load up their drive leg differently. So you'll see in the screening of Garrett Cole or like a Tyler Glass now, the glove side is essentially going to match the direction of their drive leg, or even looking at like their back knee. So if you're a little bit more hip hinge, more linear, your glove side's probably going to be a little bit more linear, right? If your drive leg's more quad dominant like myself, your glove side's probably going to influence that direction, right? And then we can talk about at the end of this book probably, you know, everything that embodies those types of pictures. That's 3. 4. Glove side posture and trunk counter rotation. You'll see this again, as I mentioned, the screening is probably going to be a better visual for this, but it's guys that have another one of those things where the trunk wants to maybe initiate early rotation, so then you have to buy it even more time by way of using the glove side as a means to counter rotate the trunk. And this could also complement the notion that I talked about in the drive leg mechanics chapter in regards to the trunk influencing a more efficient drive leg load, whether it be a trunk tilt or a trunk counter rotation over the rear hip to load up that hip, load up that drive leg. Okay, so the glove side can be a means to not only influencing probably a more optimal loading pattern of the drive leg, but it can also help influence the timing again of when the trunk rotates. So if you have this issue in which you're early with your segmentation and you're not creating a whole lot of rotational energy and you need to shave time off, you can play around with using the glove side as a means to counter rotate the trunk. So instead of coming into your drive phase with a neutral trunk and then leaving that posture before you anchor down, coming into your drive phase with a little bit of counter rotation of the trunk, which I see fit to talk about the glove side itself, because that could be a means to separate into trunk counter rotation with your glove side. Number 5, glove side counterbalance and drive leg loading. I know there's a lot of conversation within the glove side pertaining to the drive leg loading patterns, but this piece is simply a counterbalance mechanism. Again, you'll see the screening of it. If I were to stand here and do a pistol squat, okay, my arms are going to go out to counterbalance my weight to accomplish the task, right? If my hands were back, then gravity is probably just going to keep me going backwards, right? Same thing with the side. Now we're kind of neutral. It's going to be a little bit difficult of a task. Out, I can probably sit more into my glutes and accomplish that movement. Same thing when we look at the drive leg loading pattern. If you're someone that struggles with a more optimal load, right? If you're trying to get a little bit better direction, you're trying to load your glutes more, the glove side mechanism of a counterbalance, of getting your glove side out as you sit into your drive leg, as you sit into your load. Darvish is a great example of this. There's probably a lot of great examples of this, but Darvish is the first one that comes into my head. If you see the glove side, it's completely straight out in front of their chest, and it's not like their arm angle is here and they're getting rotational. They're using the glove side as a means to load up the drive leg and to obviously stay close, okay? So that's 5, and then 6, placement of hands when separated, okay? So we're looking at the handbrake. Glove side appears different for guys who separate their hands differently, right? Where are guys breaking their hands? Scherzer's a great example. Scherzer's an individual who breaks his hand descending from leg lift, and he goes low. So he's gonna have a lower glove side posture as he enters his drive phase, right? He's got a lower slot as well, so it kind of fits in. But even like a Korinchik, right, for Cleveland, who has a little bit of funk to him, but he breaks his hands low, and then his glove side goes low to high to match plan of rotation. I'll do a screening as well of this, and we can look at like a guy like Sixto Sanchez, who's gonna break his hands probably around his rear hip, and then he's gonna enter, so that is going to influence the posture of the glove side as well. It's like where you break your hands. For me personally, I'm like center cut. I break and go out like kind of bow and arrow-ish, but everyone's different. Again, we're just trying to find what's most comfortable and what's most effective for each individual, right? And then my favorite 7, funky glove side. Funky glove side, mechanical deception, right? Talk a lot about deception, how I think it, 10, 15, 20 years ago, deception was like a huge staple in teaching like mechanics. I really believe that. Now it's not taught at all because all these data analytics are superior, all these like movement patterns are more superior and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it because it is a piece to the goal of getting guys out. So I'll do a screening on this. There's a lot of guys that come to mind with, thinking about like a funky glove side. Chris Bassett with the A's. Who was it? Storen? Was it Storen? Or Tyler Clippard? Guys funky. Even Lincecum had like a funky glove side. Just something that is out of the ordinary, right? Now, we look at those guys and we say, okay, they're funky, they're deceiving, whatever, but you've got to be a superior athlete to do that, because if you're kind of focusing on a funky glove side over a lot of other things mechanically, it's hard to repeat. Yes, it can aid in your deception, but it also goes back to like the goal of what are you trying to do, right? Are you at the big league level trying to get guys out, or are you 12 years old trying to get guys out, but you still want to play at the big league level? Well, then you might want to recheck your priorities in terms of your delivery, right? But we're gonna screen it, we're gonna talk about it, and why the funkiness appears different and kind of is an outlier to the 6 other components that I mentioned. So that's a long video. We'll dive deep into more of those components specifically and give you some screenings, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks guys. Hopefully this wasn't too much of a disaster of a setup, but talk to you later.